What's up, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Pit Therapy Podcast with me, Trevor, and Kyle. And we have a very special guest, Dan of Excessive Force, Life Sentence Records. What else have you done? What else? What else can we attach to your name there, Dan?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I'm a husband and father. You can put that in there, right?
Let's go.
I've
We
done
are
those.
as well. So I have my shirt all buttoned up because for Valentine's Day, my wife got me a shirt with a bunch of pictures of her face all over it.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't know if I want that broadcast all over, so it's
Now,
under
now,
the button up right now.
now you've got to share it. Now you got to unbutton. So now
You
you
want to
said
see?
you got to
I no one here knows my wife. We've kept kind of our personal lives all secluded in a way, but this is my wife. Her name is Ashley.
There you
Let's get
go.
this down a little
You got one
bit.
that. That's great.
That's my wife right there.
Yeah, that's great.
Yo, it
She
was
got you
funny.
that?
Yeah, she made it. She made it for Valentine's Day. Um, it was kind of funny because a few years back she was wearing a black turtleneck and jeans, and then she had a fanny pack on. And have you guys seen the picture of The Rock where
Uh-huh.
he's wearing that? I made fun of her saying she looked like The Rock, and so that's the main picture that she has on there.
Yeah.
So,
That's pretty
but
good.
anyways, not about us. Well, Dan, the reason why this kind of came together is Excessive Force played FYA. Let's start there. Let's start with how this kind of all came to fruition, what the comeback meant for Excessive Force, and then you were actually supported by Utah. There was Blake, we had Tyler, Judge, and Matt were supporting you.
Yeah,
A lot of the Crow Killer and Forever War guys. So,
for
how
sure.
how did that come together?
Well, so Blake's been on me for about probably 10 years wanting to do a show, right? And he'd message me and say, let's do a show. And then I'd hear from him again 6 months later. And um, it went on that way for just years. And, finally, you know, I was at a place where I felt like I was, you know, healthy and felt good, to be able to do the show. And then, um, you know, Bob Wilson texted me and said that, we should do it, and that he wouldn't have us do it if it wasn't going to be cool, So it just ended up, you know, just ended up kind of all coming together, right, over a few months. I went out to Utah and practiced with the guys a few times, to get up to snuff with the songs again and make sure that they were up to snuff. And yeah, FYA was great.
How how hard is it coming back? Like, is it like riding a bike? Do the songs just start to like just come back to you, or do you have to really put in the effort to remember them?
So you'll I mean, those songs were written at a point in my life where I basically remember all the lyrics of all of them, So it's, my mind at that point was a steel trap. So the lyrics weren't the part that I struggled with. It was the screaming part.
Mm.
So I actually took vocal lessons with a vocal coach and worked on the screaming or whatever, so that I wouldn't blow my voice out after the
Yeah.
first.
That's wild. So, what did you guys do for that? Because, like, listen, I'm a car vocalist, right? Like, I tend to blow my voice out one day and not talk the next kind of thing. So, like, what kind of stuff did they have you do to kind of get ready for it?
So it's funny if you go on YouTube, you'll find this guy, and I can't remember his name, but it's the name of his channel is Extreme Vocal Institute, right?
Okay.
And he's like a legit guy. He's a legit guy who we did sessions together, sort of like what we're doing here, and he gave me, homework and tips, and there was videos for me to watch, and like warm-ups and the whole bit. It's pretty interesting. So you should check it out. Extreme Vocal Institute. It was pretty cool. Yeah. I mean,
That's dope.
Did you do any of that stuff when you were younger, or did you just muscle through it back then?
Just push through it, but when I was doing excessive force back in the day, I was in the Marine Corps, and there was lots of screaming and yelling in the Marine Corps, so it was, it just wasn't a problem.
Yeah. Do you feel like, I mean, this is a dumb question, but do you feel like it's, it's good that people are learning how to do it, right? Because we want longevity with these bands, but do you feel like it ruins a little bit of the like rawness of what this was? Like, should screaming be done the right way, or should it just be out of pure anger? You know what I mean?
Well, I think once your body gets to a certain age, right? You don't want to. It's the same thing with like working out, right? You just can't, go to the gym. I mean, I'm 50. What am I? 54. 54, yeah, 54. And you just can't like go to the gym when you're 54 and just go and grab a bunch of weights and start doing
Yeah.
weights. You'll hurt your muscles, right? And your your voice is, it's a muscle, for lack of a better term. I mean, so I think I did the smart thing by taking some. I mean, it wasn't as much like taking vocals to like for me to scream like in a metal band or something,
Mm,
but like warm-ups and conditioning my voice, and you know and part of it is like just knowing how much to give, right? I mean, if because my 10, when I would give my 10, he would say that that's like a normal person's like 15. You know what I'm saying? So it was like I was like I was like pushing too hard.
yeah.
So I just dialed it back just a little bit in order to, get through the songs and all that. And I thought the vocals were pretty good at FYA, I mean, they weren't 20-year-old man vocals, but I thought they were all right.
You know what though? The clips, they're great. Like I wish I could have been out there. It looked awesome. It sounded great. So kudos to you for putting in the time and putting in the effort at 50 in the 50s to come back and do something like that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I was at Cherum, Forever War, Sewn
So
Shut the
jealous.
other night, and I was yelling along to them, and I cannot yell anymore. So we're lucky I'm sitting here talking to you because it definitely blew my vocals out a little bit just singing along with those guys. So
I was watching the videos of it um, um, yesterday, so I'm pretty jealous, right? And not just jealous of like Cherim, right, and how great they were, but I thought Forever War was just like phenomenal, So I'm like super, like just like super proud of those guys, and like super jealous I wasn't able to be there. I would have
you know,
loved to have been there, but I just had too much stuff going on to travel this time and go
sure,
out there.
to justify it, absolutely. And listen, I mean, here's the crazy part: is the scene in Salt Lake is growing so much. It was just a 4 bill Salt Lake band show. So you started with Absolved, you had Sewn Shut, then Forever War, and then Cherum, and it was packed out.
Yeah,
300, 400 people. I don't know how many people there were, but they filled Fellowship Hall. It was awesome. And we've had a couple of these reunion shows, like when Crow Killer came back. They played with, well, it was actually a closed grip set, but then they played a Crow Killer song. Like, there's a thirst and a hunger for a lot of hardcore right now, just with everything going on in the world. And it seems like it's the right time to really kind of be stepping up and back into some of like these roots and stuff with you guys now signing Forever War. Like that's huge. So I know you have a lot of ties to Salt Lake because early on, like you were putting out, who did you do? Lifeless, Clear. Who else did you do from Salt Lake with Life Sentence Records?
I mean, Trip Hammer, right? I did
Trip
Trip
Hammer.
Hammer,
Mm-hmm.
was clear, and then of course Decontaminate, right? But
Decontaminate. Yep.
I think that's it. I think it's just the four bands. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
So
You were in.
you go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say you were in Salt Lake because I was reading a little bit. I think I read like one of the interviews you did with the guys from No Echo a while back. Um, and so you've kind of bounced around a little bit, right? Like I think your roots getting into this stuff was Southern California. I know you're from Illinois, right? But a lot of this you got in SoCal, or did you actually get introduced to a lot of this in Illinois?
Now, is get into what in the music?
Yeah, like the punk scene
Yeah.
or hardcore scene, like
Yeah, I mean, I got into. I was going to punk shows in 1985, in Illinois. And so yeah, definitely there. And then I didn't go into the Marine Corps until 1990. I graduated high school in '89. Went to the Marine Corps in 1990. So like in the late '80s, I was seeing like Gorilla Biscuits and Bold and Judge in Chicago, and seeing like we used to go see shows at Tony Brummel's house from Tony Victory. He used to put on shows in his
Dang.
basement, and we used to go and see like all sorts of cool bands like Integrity and Face Value playing in the
awesome.
basement there, and like stuff like it was pretty great. And then I moved out to California when I was in the Marine Corps. So I mean, I went to, I moved around a bit at the beginning of my military while I was in training, but ended up in Southern California in like '91, and then started getting into the scene there, and did a couple bands there before Excessive Force.
My question was, as I was looking into this, so you're saying early 80s, mid 80s, you're starting to go to shows, getting introduced
Yeah,
to
it's
all
the mid
this stuff.
'80s. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Minor Threat, that's 83, 84 that Straight Edge comes out, right? Is that roughly when that 1 and 2 demo come out? I think is what that
So
is.
I didn't get introduced to Minor Threat till probably the later part of the '80s. My early introduction to like punk and hardcore was stuff like The Exploited and
Mhm.
Dead Kennedys and like Motorhead and Misfits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Stuff that you'd hear on like a skateboard video, because I was like a big into skating at the time. So it was like stuff that you'd hear on skate videos. And we had this club in our town called Club Alternative, and they used to put on like these like small like punk hardcore shows there. So I mean, I saw like I remember I saw Ministry play once there at this little club right in town, and so it was just a place where you go, and it was basically like any show that was going on, you'd go and see it.
Yeah.
That was like I don't know. I was just like super thirsty for like anything that wasn't like playing on the radio at that time. And you'd go and you'd maybe come home with like a 7-inch, or you come home with like a black eye from like being in the pit too hard or something like that. Right? Those were great times. Yeah.
Yeah. So my question though is, what was your introduction to Straight Edge? Because you're going to shows as this is starting to evolve, right? We get into it. Listen, we're young. It was 2004, 2005 before we're really going to a lot of shows. And that's roughly where we're getting into it. So we're 20 years into this now. You're there roughly as it's getting going. So what was your introduction to Straight Edge?
Um, Probably Youth of Today
Okay.
was yeah. I remember I had We're Not in This Alone, Can't Close My Eyes, and Break Down the Walls. I had those on cassette, right? Um, and that was probably the early introduction to Straight Edge, and then of course Minor Threat as well. I never Minor Threat was long gone before I ever really got involved with it, and so I had heard Minor Threat, and I was like, oh, Minor Threat's so great. And then my friend's like, hey, you should check out this other band called Fugazi. It's got the singer from Minor Threat.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, they're fucking terrible, Fugazi. I mean, I like Fugazi now, and I can appreciate Fugazi now. But at the time, I was like, this isn't Minor Threat. This is like something, kind of artsy fartsy for me, and I just wasn't into it.
So what drew you to the scene? What drew you to the idea of Straight Edge and all of that? Was it just the music, or what kept you kind of going that way? And the reason I ask this, right, is because Life Sentence has been, listen, everyone rips off Keep Smoking, I Want You to Die. Like everyone rips that off. All the bands rip it off. So like obviously you guys played a big role in what was to come later in the 90s and things like that. So what drew you to the idea, and had you continue to go down that path?
You know, so I wish I could add like a grand statement for this, but so I was listening to like this music, and I was essentially drug free, didn't really know really much what straight edge was, and a friend of mine had made like a comp for me. Like we used to, high speed dub cassette tapes for each other and stuff like that. And I remember I got a cassette, um, and it had, like a bunch of like kind of straight edge stuff on it. And then my friend was like straight edge, right? And he's put X on his hand, and I'm like, ooh, what's that all about, And then we're going to shows, and we're all Xing up at shows. So it wasn't like I was the first one. I was probably like just following the crowd, I mean, all those other group of people were they all found like straight edge before I found straight edge. Um, but then, I'm the last one left out of all those guys. So
That's crazy. That's crazy. So you get going, you move out to California, you get introduced to the scene. So you said you were in a couple bands before, but what was kind of the first band, or what led to Excessive Force?
um, I was in a band like right before. So I was my first band out there was a band called Full Contact. It was kind of like New York hardcore ish stuff, right? And then I was in a band after that, a short lived band called Foul Play. And so I was in Foul Play, and then I went on a deployment to Japan, and during this deployment to Japan, I discovered Earth Crisis. It was like a grand awakening, right? And I came back from Japan, and I was like, that's it. I'm gonna fucking start a band like this, like this militant, because the full contact was, in my mind, I was a straight edge guy. I was Xing up, but Full Contact wasn't a straight edge band. We had some kind of like straight edgy type lyrics, but we weren't a straight edge band. And I wanted to be like an in your face, straight edge band. So yeah, it was that time that I spent in Japan, just listening to like, Earth Crisis a lot when I was over there, and I came back and I just wanted to start a band like that.
And then the label was to put out Excessive Force, correct?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. We recorded. Um, we recorded pretty quick after we started because we wanted to go on a tour. Right. This is kind of a crazy story. So we had this guy, Billy Hayes. He used to play in Dead Weight, and he was our drummer, and he kind of gathered everyone together, and um, and so we had like Billy and Richie and me and Worm Boy, and that was like Excessive Force, right? And
Okay.
the early on Excessive Force, and um, we recorded that record because we wanted to go on tour, right? So when you're in the military, you get 30 days of vacation a year, right? So I took my 30 days leave, and we booked a tour. Uh, there's this I don't know if you're familiar with Maximum Rock and Roll, the magazine, but they used
Hmm.
to put out this like book or this pamphlet every couple of years. It was called a Book Your Own Fucking Life, right? And
Yep.
it was basically like this like how to book on, hey, these are the places you contact to get records pressed, these are the places you contact to get stickers pressed. Here's a big list of people who do shows in all of these different places, right? So you just start like writing people letters and like calling people on the phone, and it's like, hey, I'm in this band, you've never heard of my band, but you want to book a show for me on August 2nd, and the guy would be like, sure, I'll book a show. And then you show up, and there's either 13 people at that show or 300 people at that show. You don't know until you show up. But we needed a record, to tour, in my mind anyway. And so I put out the record on Life Sentence, and we hadn't even ever played a show when the 7-inch came out. So the 7-inch came out, and I took the records to like all the record stores in Southern California, like Zed's Records and Vinyl Solution, and I took those records there, and the guys that worked at the record store kept calling me up and saying, "You got to bring in more records because these records are just selling out." Right. So I kept bringing records in the store. Like every week I was bringing in records, like 10, 15, 20 records at a time, and they would sell all those records out. And so when we had our first show, it was like people already knew the lyrics, they already knew the songs,
Holy
right? And
cow.
um, and it's like they thought we were like a touring band, because we had never played a show there. It was pretty cool.
That's crazy. So, what are the other bands that are going on at this time down in Southern California? Because obviously there's a thirst for it. So, who were some of like the other bands that you guys ended up playing shows with and stuff?
So we ended up playing like a bunch of shows with like Chorus, right? Chorus of Disapproval. We played
Okay.
a bunch of shows with them. Bands like um, bands like so a lot of bands you've never heard of, right? So
Sure.
um, they were all just like tiny bands like None for All, Beg to Differ. Um, uh, and I'm drawing a blank, but all these other bands were around there too. Like Mean Season was playing shows. They wouldn't play with us. Unbroken was playing shows. They wouldn't play with us. Strife was playing shows. Strife wouldn't play with us. So it was like we had kind of played with like bands like Black Spot and like Function. Those bands from like Huntington Beach area. We played a bunch of shows with them. Um, but yeah, you're right. There was a lot of the music scene there was was pretty it was pretty mellow. A lot of it was, we were sort of like an outlier, with the more like militant lyrics and the more chugga chugga that we were doing at the time.
I gotcha. So, what do you think? Why do you think you guys were so well received then? Why is everyone scrambling to get their hands on an excessive force 7-inch at the time?
So I think it was just something that was just different. I mean, I don't necessarily think we were like super well received, but there was like a subset of the kids there who were like really thirsty for what we were doing. Um, so I mean, I mean, we definitely didn't get on like all the greatest shows out there. Just because like a lot of those bigger bands wouldn't play with us because we had like tough guy lyrics or whatever, right? And so a lot of places didn't book us for that because of just whatever reason they just wouldn't book us. But um, I think the kids were just really thirsty for something that maybe sounded a little bit different than the other bands in the area, and I don't know. The maybe it was the cheesy photocopy cover that just drew those kids in.
I gotcha. Hey, whatever reason, I mean, it sounds like that you guys were actually pretty influential down in that scene. And obviously, with some of the bands that you ended up putting out, like I'm thinking like 18 Visions. Um, oh my gosh, who was the other one? It Dies Today, and a few of these other bands that you guys did some of their first EPs and stuff. That's a couple years after you've started doing this. So what made you want to keep putting more bands out instead of just kind of keeping putting excessive force out? What led to like the label growing?
Well, like almost immediately after the 7-inch came out, Dead Weight contacted me and asked me if I would put out their record. And
Okay.
we had played with Dead Weight too. I probably should have mentioned them before, but they were another band that we used to play with pretty frequently. Um, and they asked me if I would put out their record, and I was like, sure. I've already put out this one record. I can put out another record. It's not a big deal. And back then, you could press 507 inches for like, I don't know, man. You could press like 507 inches for like $500 or something crazy like that. It was pretty. I mean, it sounds like super cheap then, but it was, I mean, it was inflation, right? And so we're
Yeah.
still wholesaling them for $2 each, right? So there wasn't like a gigantic profit margin on 7 inches, um, but yeah. So I mean, I just started putting out bands, and then we went on tour. We stayed with the guys from Torn Apart. We stayed at their house on tour, and I'm like, hey, you guys want to put a record out on my label, And it was, I mean, but so now, I mean, now you can't even like like throw a rock without hitting three labels, but back then there wasn't like a lot of labels out there, and so kids would bands would actually like put out a demo themselves, and they'd sell that demo at shows, and so it's a little bit different than now. Now it seems like really from my perspective of like running the label in 2026, I can tell you it's a little frustrating because I'll go and on Instagram and I'll look around for bands and I'll say, wow, this band's great. And I'll look and they're on a label, and I'll look at another band and they're on a label. So it's, it's a little bit frustrating sometimes.
Do you think being on a label holds the same weight though? Like if you were to contact some of those guys, do you think they'd just be like, yeah, sure, I'll jump? Like it probably doesn't hold as much weight as it did back in the 90s.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of those labels are sort of like hobby labels, it's like a guy that puts out 20 tapes or something like that, and and that in their mind is a label. It's like they're putting out bands, and that's great. They're putting it out. They're putting music out. They're growing the scene, right? um, so I mean, just recently I started actually getting demos or getting contacted from bands that are on labels, and some of the labels that they're on I think are like comparable or of a higher status than life sentences, but bands have started contacting me, and I don't know. I mean, I think there's somewhat of like a status symbol of, right, of being on a label, right? And I don't know. I mean, you know, life sentence does carry a little bit of weight. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not like blind to that. I'm not like got a big head on that, right? It's like there's no way I'm gonna like you know sign like giant bands on the label or anything. But I think that there's like a good word of mouth, and it's really actually kind of surprising, because I took a break from like I took a break from the label for what 20 years, just because I took a break because like Napster had started and like everyone was file sharing and no one was buying anything, and I had just like thousands of CDs sitting in my garage and no one was buying these CDs, so I took all these CDs and I threw them all in the trash. It was crazy, but just like thousands of CDs. You have no idea how many thousands of CDs I threw away in the trash back in like 2005 ish, right? Um, but I can't remember where I was going with that, right? But
No,
maybe
no.
reel me
And
back in that I got
yeah,
on a
yeah,
little.
no. I appreciate what you said there because like obviously Chuck, it holds weight for them to say they're on life sentence records. Like Forever War saying they're on life sentence records is important to these guys. And there
Sure.
are older labels, there are the labels that we grew up with that do hold more weight. Obviously, there are labels a dime a dozen these days, right? And if there's someone who's out there willing to help put out music, more power to them. Like, obviously, we want the scene to continue to grow and stuff like that. But it's important. Some of what you guys did when like we were growing up and the bands that came out because of you and stuff, like I think back 18 Visions was big. It was a massive band for us. It
Sure.
Dies Today, a massive band for us. Like and then being in Salt Lake, we have all of that history that then we started to go back to and learn about and it's a big deal for us. And so them being able to say we're with Life Sentence, it's important for these guys. So it
Yeah.
does hold weight 100%.
Sure. Yeah. I
So
mean, I was watching them play, and he had like done like a little speech after one of their songs about life sentence, and it choked me up a little bit when he was saying those things, right? Because it means a lot to me, and I'm hoping that like like this newfound interest in life sentence like equates to like, people actually buying records, right? That'd be amazing, right? If people actually buy records, and I have like I actually sell records, and then I can like put out more records, and the life sentence could be like gigantic, right? But you never really know, like the the Forever War is it's about a week from going out to the press. I mean, I was hoping to send it out this week to the pressing plant, but there's been a little bit delay with the mastering, so we're so close to getting ready to have it go out. It's gonna we're planning to launch pre-orders on the 24th, I think. So pre-orders are
sick.
coming up for it. Yeah. soon. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Um, I guess if you are like a smaller band looking for a label, what do you look for when bands reach out to you?
Oh, I was hoping that you guys would ask that question, right? I really was. I almost said, "Hey, you should ask me that question," because so um, I would say I'm looking for bands like, I mean, in the world of like the social media, like where we live in, right? A band's got to have like some level of followers, right? And I think that's important. And not just followers, but you also, in order to grow, social media, you also have to be following people, right? So they're like this kind of this yin and yang with that. So I'm looking for bands that have like already like some level of like established like followers, right? Because you've got to like go out there and play shows and sell records, right, or sell CDs or
Hmm.
sell tapes or whatever. And, no one's gonna care if I just put it out. I mean, I'm sure some people would buy it just because it's life sentence, right? But you need to go out there and like make your way and make a name for yourself. But so yeah, I mean, you have to be out there play shows. Um, Looking for like bands are kind of serious. I'm not saying that I expect a band to like be on the road and touring all the time, because no one can afford that, right? I mean, you have to be a giant band to spend a lot of time on the road, but be able to play shows. um, I started getting like you'd be surprised, since the Forever War like recorded, right, and we announced Forever War, I've been getting a fair amount of bands that contact me, right? Not a lot, but it's been a handful every week of bands that contact me. And so I'm looking for like information like um, like I want to know what you're about, so don't just like send me a thing and say, yo, check out my thing. um, I want to know like where you've been, what your plans are. I want to know like the lyrics, from um, like what your songs are about. And I can always go down, if I like kind of like the music, what from a band, I sort of go down a rabbit hole, right? And I go on Instagram and I go through their posts, and I sort of stalk them on their on Instagram a bit, and like check all their stuff out on their page, see what kind of like interactions that they get, right? Um, so
Cool.
So, does it matter to you if they really know who you guys are? Or let's say they saw the Forever War announcement and they're like, "Oh, that's cool. Like there's a label to go and contact," but they
sure.
really don't know the history or anything like that. Does that hold any weight to you? Or at this point are you kind of like, "Listen, it's a new generation. These kids are going to do their thing. If they have the message, if they have the sound and all that stuff, sure, let's bring them in." Or is it like, do you know
No,
what you're getting into?
I'm not looking for a band to like um, like like talk to me and say like, oh yeah, we want to be on life sentence because of all the cool stuff the life sentence done over the years. Where because ultimately it's all about them, right?
Yeah.
Me running a label, I want to support the band, right? And sure, there has to be kind of like a give and take, right? So they're out there playing shows. Hopefully they've got shirts for sale with my logo on it. I'm selling shirts with their logo on it. I'm putting out records or CDs or whatever with my logo on it. um, and someone's going to end up buying that. I mean, it's someone's going to buy that piece of merch or piece of media, and they're going to look at Life Sentence, and maybe then they go down the rabbit hole and they look and see what else is on Life Sentence, right? And maybe that leads them to checking out another band or buying another record, right? And I talk to the bands, before I agree to work with them. I say, listen, we're like, we gotta be like close knit, so I expect you to, if one of the other bands on the label, post something cool, you should share it. You should do your part in like promoting like
Hmm.
these other bands, because it all it really does is help you. You promote them, right? And then they get like a little bit of notoriety, right? And next thing you know, I mean, they've got people in their scene that have never heard of your band, and now they're interested in your band because the other band's shouting them out. And so yeah, it's for me, it's always got to be like, I don't want any bands on the label, that aren't interested in promoting the other bands on the label.
Sure. All right. Elevator pitch. Life sentence podcasts. I'm just kidding.
I wouldn't know what I talk about on Life Sense.
No. Like
I
we'll
think Trevor's
be
trying to get you to
life
sponsor
sentence.
us. So.
Oh yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. But I want to get back on your history a little bit. I'm really curious about the way that you saw the scene evolve, because what you guys came from, the look, the style, the aggressiveness, all that kind of stuff, everyone kind of knew what a hardcore kid or a punk kid kind of looked like, right? Then you have bands like It Dies Today, 18 Visions, Southern California, Bleeding Through came out, and the metalcore scene starts to take over with a little bit of the mascara, the long hair, the black, and all that kind of stuff. What was your opinion of everything that was going on, or just what was happening at this point in time, that from your point of view?
The funny thing is you have to remember there was no like social media back then, right?
Exactly.
So it was like a band would send you like like a real promo pack. I would get a promo pack from the band with like a bio, or like a written out bio, maybe a couple live photos, a band photo, right, and like a demo. And that's what I got to judge them, right? I didn't get to like see how they get their freak on when they play their shows. There was none of that, right? But and some of that, you just luck out, right? I mean, when I put out 18 Visions, like 18 Visions was not the same band that they grew up to be. They were
Right.
like this tiny itty bitty band, not overly like ambitious band. They didn't seem like they didn't seem to be like this band that was going to go on and like take over the world or whatever they did, right? They did great stuff, right? And they did some really great albums, right? I don't think that my album is like their best release, right? I think they did stuff that I think sounds, as far as like hardcore releases, I think it's their best hardcore release, right?
There you go.
But some of their other releases, like musically, were like so much better, right? And I can really appreciate that. Same thing with It Dies Today, you just roll the dice, when you're working on a label, and sometimes you find a band um, that really no one knows about, and they contact you, and you put out their record, and next thing you know, they're like on Trustkill or whatever, and you just luck out, right? But every band that you do that I put out that did that, there was like two bands that like broke up within a year of being out, of having their release out, so it's just a crapshoot, you hope that they do good, and that you hope that they're going to stick around and play shows, and promote the label, and then you end up selling CDs or whatever, it's a gamble,
Was there a lot of shit talking though, on the look, on the aesthetics that started to develop? Because like, listen, when we grew up, we all had our look, right? We had like basketball shorts and like jerseys was kind of where we grew up. And then after that, we called them tall T kids, where they were wearing like really long t-shirts, like to their like knees and stuff like that. And it's just like, it's what you do. You talk shit on the next generation, right? So like, was there like shit talking that was going on, or was it just like, oh, that's cool? Like, I like what they're doing.
Every generation's got their kind of like weirdos, right? Like when Excessive Force was playing shows, like there were like those kids with like the really really big pants,
Yeah.
and they would wear like backpacks, and they used to do crazy shit, like they'd sit down in the middle of the pit, um, uh, we would play with like a band, and like all these like backpack kids would come in, and they would like sit in the pit, and they would just get like murdered when we played, because kids would like stomp all over them. But as far as um, I mean, I don't know if I knew that like It Dies Today was like wearing makeup or whatever and tight pants, when they were playing shows, but it really didn't matter to me. It's like I thought they were a good band, and I met the guys, and I spent like a good amount of time, chatting with them on the phone or whatever, and they seemed like nice guys, and you take a gamble and you put out a record, and or you basically the way it sort of works is you get a demo from a band, and then you agree to work with them, and then they go into the studio, and you hope they give you like a diamond is what you
Mhm.
hope for, that you hope that they're going to go in the studio, and they're going to come back with something that's great, and sometimes they come back with something that's great, and sometimes they come back with something that's just okay, but you've already committed to that at that point, and you're going to put that record out regardless, right? And that It Dies Today, that Forever Scorn, was like a platinum level diamond. I mean, that thing was just like an
So
excellent
freaking
record.
Yeah.
good.
And again, you just luck out, with that. And I lucked out more than probably other labels did, because out of all the stuff that I put out, I don't think I put out very much that like wasn't good. I didn't.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Not everything was like at the same level, of course, but um, but I mean, I stand by the releases that I put out, and I put them out regardless of what how they were interpreted by the fans or whatever. You put a record out, and you just kind of let the world own it and make up their mind whether they like it or not.
So this is actually something that like is really interesting to me because we talk about a lot of bands and like sound changes and stuff they go through throughout the years. When you were helping some of these bands, did you ever like hear some new stuff that maybe changed their sound and you were like you released it, but you maybe were a little like, yeah, what are you guys doing? Like was that a common thing with some of these bands?
No, um, if you look at like the catalog, there wasn't like a ton of bands I did more than one release for. It was like
Hmm.
there was like my band, of course, and then there was like Grimlock. I did a couple of
Hmm.
releases for Grimlock, and their second album was like far better than the first one they did. Right? I mean, it was like Grimlock was one of those examples where where they had put out cruise. They had put out what was it? What was the first one they put out?
Crusades of Reality.
What was the one they put out first on Pin Drop? It was
Ooh, I'll have to look at that. See if
I
I
don't
can
know.
pull
You're
them up
supposed
real
to be on
fast.
the internet and tell us what
We're on here. We're trying.
it was on Pin Drop Records. So what was that? What was that album?
Thirst for
Sons of Self.
Immortality.
Sons of Self. Sons of Self. Yeah, and that album was like phenomenal, right? And
Yeah.
then Crusades of Reality was okay, right? It wasn't as good. And then they ended up coming back with Crusher, which I thought was better than both the other ones combined. So you just sort of luck out. I mean, as someone who's runs a label, I mean, I don't think I ever went to a band and said, hey, maybe on the next release,
Mm.
maybe stop, maybe stop doing this or maybe stop doing that, because ultimately what was happening was these bands were, putting out a release on my label, and then they would either break up or they'd go on and put a release out on another
Mm.
label. So it was like there wasn't like a lot of this consultative approach where I was like
Yeah.
talking to them and saying, you could get bigger if you did this or this.
That's cool though. That I mean, like respect it because we hear horror stories of some of these labels that obviously try and take creative control, and so respect that you just kind of had this idea of
Really, there's labels
Whether
that,
it's
the
whether
big
it's the
labels.
label or the producers or
producer.
whoever it is,
Yeah.
I mean, you hear about like the stuff that happened with like Victory and things along those lines, where it's
Mhm.
For
like, hey, we
sure.
want to kind of funnel you into this direction and stuff. And that we hope that a label isn't there for that. They're there to promote the band,
Yeah.
like what you're talking about.
We are, right? I mean, it's like, but at the end of the day, you got to sell records, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
let's just take the hypothetically, right? And we're gonna have a little fun with this, right? Let's say Forever War, right? They put out this album, right? And I've heard their album, right? And it is like phenomenal, right? You guys are gonna be so tickled pink when you hear it. And so let's say after this album, right, they start playing songs, and Chuck starts doing like clean vocals, right, where he's singing like Stone Temple Pilots or something, right? Um, I might step in at that point and say, "Hey, Chuck, you gotta slow down with this stuff, right?" But who never knows? I mean, maybe it's really good, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you've got like the vocal chops to actually do that, I mean, you can get away with some crazy stuff if you've got talent.
That's true. That's true. So, okay, what about tour stories? Stuff that's not going to get you in trouble, right? I mean, obviously this was 30 years ago, but do you have like specific stories that you reflect on or they like you talk about to reminisce about with people? Like give us some highlights of being on the road or some scenes that you enjoyed
Yeah,
going to.
I've told the stories a lot of times about like excessive force on the road with VOD when they were like tripping on shrooms and we were shooting bottle rockets at each other and stuff like that, or or them like rolling down like a hill. Like there was like this big hill like at a rest stop and they were rolling down the hill tripping on shrooms, we were like we'd shoot you know fireworks at each other, throw fireworks. They would be in their van, and we would come up and like throw like fireworks inside their van when they were like in the van. Um,
Oh gosh.
but let me see stuff that wouldn't get people in trouble, right? So yeah, that's just some of it, right? I mean, when we were on tour, we were a bunch of straight edge guys on tour, so we didn't like get up to like too much no good.
Was there any
But
like shows that stood out though, or any particular like scene that like when you rolled through, you always knew it was going to be a good time kind of thing?
it was funny. I mean, like the first tour that Excessive Force did, um, it was like pretty much let's say every show except like two of those shows on that whole tour were like pretty much mid. They were just not great shows, right? And it was just because honestly speaking, man, we had a 7-inch out like 2 months before. We had no business of being on tour on the East Coast playing shows, like zero business doing it. It was just like and we had so we drove we drove my pickup truck. I had a pickup truck, right? It was a Toyota pickup truck, like one of those mini trucks, right? And it had like a camper shell on the back,
Sick.
and and we had like a little cargo container on the top of it where we stuck the drums in the cargo container in the top, as well as like a ton of like canned food, right? And and we basically drove across country from California to the East Coast in this pickup truck. And it was like we'd have three people sitting in the front of the pickup truck and two people would sit in the back of the pickup truck, like all the way across the country. And and I think about that. I think about that now. And luckily it was my truck, so I sat in the front the whole time. But those sorry kids that had to sit in the back of that pickup truck like driving across the country. It cracks me up just thinking about it. Now it does. It cracks me up, but just to think of like the trust that their parents put in me, right? So I'm like an adult at this point. I'm like 22 probably, and these kids are like, like 17, 18, and their parents are like, sure, sure, you can go on tour across the country in this grown man's pickup truck, you know, and um, and everyone on that tour, chipped in $200, right? And so like we basically had like $1,000 to survive on this tour, and it was a pretty good time. It was an interesting experience, to get out there and play shows and stay at creepy people's houses and stuff. It wasn't so bad.
Oh, that's awesome. Was are you still in contact with any of those creepy people that you stayed at their house?
So definitely not. Although it's funny, I did get um, I did get a message on Instagram. So I remember we played at the show in like Rhode Island or something like that, right? And um, and like three people showed up to this show, right? It was crazy. Like whoever booked the show just did the shittiest job ever booking the show, right? And these kids were there, right? And they bought our merch and they asked us to autograph it, right? So I'm scribbling on his record. I'm like, "Eat shit and die, fucker," on his record. And this guy messaged me on Instagram probably 2 months ago, and he was like, "Yeah, I bought one of those records from you at that show." You know, I was one of those three kids that were at that show, so it was pretty funny. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. So the kind of where I wanted to wrap up with this is Salt Lake. So you move out of Southern California, you go back to Illinois, didn't love it there, and made your way to Salt Lake. How did this all come together? Why Salt Lake?
So Excessive Force played in Salt Lake, and I had known like the clear guys and the lifeless guys out there, right? So I and Alex Slack offered me a place to stay, until I got up on my feet, right? So it just was an easy place to go, I mean, so I packed up that little pickup truck and I drove on out to Salt Lake, yeah.
I gotcha. How did obviously you knew the guys and stuff. How was the scene from like Southern California, Illinois, and Salt Lake? Like, what were the differences? Was it all kind of the same just because you all kind of knew each other, or was there pretty big differences?
I mean, Southern California is, I mean, they have like the San Diego scene with like, like Unbroken was down there, and then you've got like the LA type scene with like Strife, right? And you've got like the Inland Empire and like
Hmm.
Riverside, San Bernardino scene, and then you've got like the Orange County scene. So there's all like these little scenes, in Southern California, and they all have kind of their own kind of cliques, and there would be fights at shows, like Unbroken would come to a show and there'd be a fight, or whatever, or and then Illinois, there's the suburbs in Illinois, right? So there's very few people that are like Chicago straight edge, right? Even though everyone says they're Chicago straight edge, but back then at least, there really wasn't like a big Chicago straight edge. It was like everyone was from the suburbs, right? And but you take the train into the city to go to a show, and everyone sort of coalesce there and go to shows together. But Salt Lake was, maybe like a mishmash between the two of them, right? I mean, they've got like, for me, Salt Lake has always been like a really cool scene, with all the problems that Salt Lake has, and Salt Lake is a great scene, but there's always like this little tension at Salt Lake that you just didn't need to have. It's like, you know what? If everyone would just like, squash the beef and just like, take their testosterone level down just a little bit, maybe before they go to shows, maybe they should just like rub one out before a show or something. Lessen the testosterone, and then go out to the show and, and have a good time. But I think, I mean, I'm looking forward to getting back out to Salt Lake City and playing a show out there. I was kind of jealous of that Sharam show because I really want to be out there for that show, and I've been getting on Blake about getting us getting Excessive Forces show out there.
Well, I think if anyone's going to make it happen, Blake is probably going to make it happen. He's a pretty tenacious guy.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll happen.
We're
Right? Yeah, we're just trying to work out dates or whatever, right? With everything, I'm trying to decide whether we're going to do it like just a one show or play Reno that same weekend or play Denver or and then trying to factor out when we're going to play Southern California and then
oh
and then
sick.
I'm still hoping for like an offer to come in to like go and play a couple shows in Japan or something. That's really what I'm holding out for. But
Yeah, you have ties there. So you got to Japan through the military, and then did you just maintain connection out there, or
so
how did
I
like
was
the Japan
I
scene
went to
go?
some shows out there, but I never like met the people that I ended up working with Life Sentence out there when I was out there, right? So
Uh huh.
so I was near Hiroshima when I was in the military out there, and like I said, I went to some shows because I found like record stores that had flyers, right? And when you're in a foreign place, when you're in a new place, you go to a record store to see what kind of records they have, and then you find a show and you go to shows. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if like some of the people that I've been that I started communicating with just a short time later with the label with like Hero from Statecraft, I wouldn't be surprised if those people were potentially at some of the shows that I was at, but it was just um, um, I just didn't know it, and the Japanese scene has really like blown up, right? I
Yeah.
mean, um, I mean, I can't even like right now I'm wearing a shirt from this band called Gates of Hopeless, right?
Okay.
Right. So they're like a metallic hardcore band from out there. I'm going to do a split CD with them, um,
Oh,
sometime,
sick.
and but now there's just so many U.S. bands that are playing out there. Whereas
Hmm.
before, it seemed like it was just like Japanese bands at shows, and now Japan's got this really like strong, like healthy scene out there.
Well, and they send bands to us. Like Cruelty from Japan comes over here all the time. Like there's actually some really cool bands that have made their way to the US, which has been really impressive as well.
Do they get out
So
of Salt Lake or just in California?
no, Cruelty comes through. Cruelty's been here several times,
All right.
and I think it's a 200 stab wounds tour that they're going out with.
Mm,
They're like the heavier death metal style, 200 stab wounds, sing a swing a bog, like that style. Um, but yeah, Cruelty's rolled through several times.
yeah. No, it's so interesting that I mean, so um, like when I started doing the label, like you knew of the bands that were like from Europe, right? And you knew the European labels and the Good Lives and the Life Forces, and you knew all those labels over there. Um, but it was kind of slim pickings in Japan, at least from my perspective, because I mean, Statecraft sent me a demo and they're like, hey, we want to be on Life Sentence, right? I mean, that shit would never happen today, right? I mean, now they would just, I mean, they would obviously put it out on Retribution over there, right? But yeah, that scene over there just seems like it's just like blown up crazy. I'm trying to like get involved with it because I want to put out I want to rebuild some of those ties with that scene because I'm also rebuilding ties with like the European scene too. Like we have an agreement with Still Life Records in Italy that's going to do the Forever War release over there, right?
Sweet.
So they're going to pick up and do that on CD and vinyl and cassette over there, right? The guy that runs that label, he's in Destroy Babylon.
Okay.
So
Yep. Oh, that's awesome.
yeah.
So, okay. So we got Forever War, first band announced for Life Sentence Records. Fortune is the next band, Vegan Straight Edge out of Portland. Is that correct?
Portland, yeah.
Yep, Portland. Anything else in the works this
Ooh, I
time?
got so much in the works. Let me see what I can tell you.
without it blowing up, but
So no. So I am announcing another band on the 26th, but I'm not going to tell
okay,
you who it is. Right? We're going to leave that
that's
secret.
okay.
But if you go back and replay this tape, um, their name has been mentioned in this podcast. So you just go back.
Okay,
So I'm working right now to do the Torn Apart. Nothing is Permanent. That's coming out on vinyl.
okay,
Cool.
Um, I'm doing. There's going to be the Decontaminate discography. I'm going to do that on 12-inch, right?
sweet.
The Wings of Scarlet discography. That's basically almost getting ready to go to the press now, right? So that's got the EP I did, plus the split I did, plus an unreleased song that'll be on CD, and we'll do a shirt for that. And then there's the Gates of Hopelessness, the split that's coming out. But maybe that's all I should say, right? But
Listen, Dan, come on,
stuff
man.
too. Like I would love to do like a Grimlock discography and a With Dead Hands Rising discography. Um, it's weird, I mean, all that stuff, all like those re-releases, are just gonna be like limited. Like for example, like the Decontaminate, I'll probably only do like 100 or 200 copies of that on vinyl, and just sort of just put it out because I've always wanted to do it. I've always wanted to do it, and and the Torn Apart. That's I'm working with another label on that, and that's going to be hopefully hopefully that's going to be in the next couple months. They're working on the layout for that right now. But that Torn Apart is my favorite release I ever did on the label, and I just I think it deserves a vinyl release. It's just never had one.
Well, that's awesome. We're excited. I mean, the stuff is fantastic. And I think that right now is the perfect time. Vinyl's coming back. People are all into collecting and wanting the past and reminiscing things. So I think that there's going to be a lot of people who grab the Life Sentence catalog as it comes out. So
Sure.
I think you're making it back at the right time for sure.
I'm sure counting on it, man. So the more people that pick this stuff up, the more stuff I can put out, right? I am putting out um, the I am putting out Fortune later on in the year, right?
Hmm.
And I'm actually going to put out their previous EP. I'm going to put that on out on cassette, like limited cassette, and probably like limited CD too, just to put it out because that stuff is really good too. So more, plenty of releases coming up.
Last question. What is your preferred medium of listening to stuff? Do you like CD, vinyl, cassette? Cassette's the one that I haven't been able to get into, but I do the rest of them.
So I've heard that if you get into cassette, you may never get out of cassettes, right? So
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
you have to be careful with cassettes, right? But so I'm going to try to do cassettes for the releases, just because I hear the kids are into them and they're into collecting them and they're into buying them, And I mean, there's not a high profit margin on that type of stuff. They're really, I mean, there's just not a really high profit margin on cassettes, especially when you do like stuff that's limited, right? If you do hundreds of something, the cost of manufacturing goes down pretty well. But when you do like 25 cassettes or 50 cassettes, I mean, you're breaking even and making a couple bucks on that, So
Right.
I do appreciate those labels that do that. Me, I mean, the last cassette I bought, let me see, like the last cassette I probably had was like the VOD demo cassette. I mean,
Okay.
I haven't had cassettes, but I mean, I used to buy lots of cassettes, right? Like Circle Jerks on cassette, Chromax on cassette, like Agnostic Front on cassette, all that stuff, right? But my preferred medium is probably CD, right? Just because of how easy it is to stick it in and play it, right? But I do appreciate the vinyl, right? Just the way it looks and it's the presentation of it, right? It just looks so much more interesting than a CD, right?
Hmm. We've talked about that a lot. We've recently both got into vinyl collecting, and it's more just for the physical aspect of it, being able to pull out the flyer, read the lyrics, and all that stuff. That's what we grew up doing with CDs, anyways. And so having a bigger, better art, uh, better art and stuff like that, it's fantastic. It's beautiful. But I'm with you. I bought a car last year, and it has a CD player, and I've pulled all my old CDs out. I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah,
So
yeah. The,
cool.
the Forever War that's coming out on 5 different colors of vinyl. The first pressing.
All right. All
So
right.
something for anyone.
Yeah.
Something for everyone. There we go. Awesome. Well, Dan, it was great to meet you. It was awesome to connect. Super excited for all of Life Sentence and what they have coming out. First thing that you guys are going to see is Forever War. That should be coming out in the next month or two, give or take. Uh, once
Yeah.
those pressings are done, correct?
So it just depends on how far it gets pushed back. That re-release of the Fortune might end up just, coming out before the Forever
Ah,
War, but
fair.
Forever War's got a Forever War is LSR 33, right? They've got the earlier catalog number, but I mean, just with vinyl sometimes takes 8 to 10 weeks to press the vinyl, right? It's crazy
Sure.
how long it takes. And we just got so many projects we're trying to push through them and get the stuff out.
Well, keep your eyes peeled for that. And then Excessive Force, we're hoping to get you guys out here in Salt Lake sooner than later. But hopefully it turns into a little SoCal, maybe Denver, maybe Reno, who knows, kind of thing. But it looks like you got a lot of stuff in the works.
I
But
appreciate it. Thanks.
dude, we appreciate it. We'll catch you soon and we'll promote what we can when it does drop. So
All right, sounds great.
Cool.
thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.